Hi, welcome to AmateurLogic.TV, episode 34. I'm George.
And I'm Jim.
And I'm Tommy.
And I'm Peter.
And we've got a great show lined up for you tonight. Well, we've got a lot of content, don't we, Jim?
Oh, I tell you, I don't know if we're going to be able to cram it all in or not.
Yeah, last one was called Jam Pack Show, but this one might be Jam Pack Part 2.
Double jam pack. Well, let's take a moment and talk about what everybody's been doing. What have you been up to, Tommy?
Man, I've been getting my truck rigged back up for HF, mobile HF. You know, we signed up for the Aries group here, and I've been trying to get all my gear top notch.
Yeah.
Back on all.
What about you, George? What have you been up to lately?
Well, I've been looking for an 80-meter antenna to give Tommy to put on his truck. So
Yeah.
but it's over there behind the camera, Tommy.
All right.
Maybe you grab it before you head out.
Yeah, you can count on it.
Well, I've been kind of busy, as you know, with trying to have a project for Ham Nation every week. Lately, I've been making some PC boards, and that's something I haven't done in a long time, and it's been a lot of fun.
I noticed that, yeah.
And I also got a new toy here.
Oh.
See which way to move. Right back here, it's a ICOM ID 880H D-Star rig, and
Oh, ho, ho.
kind of trying to learn the ropes on it. I've made a few QSOs and got it briefly programmed up. There's still a lot to learn and a lot to do with it, but it's a pretty nice mode.
I've heard that that's a pretty in-depth subject.
Yeah.
Kind of like what I've been working on.
What have you been working on?
Well, IRLP, as a matter of fact, got a node up and running today.
Great. Are you ready to give out the number yet?
Yeah, I think so. It's node ID STN8388, or just 8388. That's all you need to know.
Yeah.
We got it up testing today. It'll be live and on the air, I don't know, maybe sometime next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool.
Yeah. And what about you, Peter? What is that you've got around your neck there?
This is a scarf for the Melbourne Heart Football Club, which I've just become a member of. It's a new club here in Melbourne, and we had our first win for the season just last week. So I'm very happy.
And so, what do? Do you get out there and call the plays with your ham radio?
No. I just watch, and if you've been watching Facebook, you'll see that I've taken a few photographs and put them up, at least on my personal page. I can pop one up on the AmateurLogic page if you like.
Oh, okay. And so, ham radio-wise, what have you been up to lately?
Ham radio-wise, well, I got a bargain, actually, off eBay. It's a Realistic DX302, and that was the radio that I used to listen to shortwave to when I was young. Apart from that, I've upgraded my computer to quad-core, and as you'll see later in the show, I built a One Valve Regenerative Receiver.
Oh, I saw that rig. George, what was that Radio Shack, that Realistic shortwave receiver? You know, the one that always sat up there on the shelf behind us?
DX100 maybe?
Maybe so,
I
yeah.
can't
The
remember.
DX100.
It was in a metal case.
Yeah, oh man, I love that rig. I always wanted one of those.
I had a 392.
Yeah.
That was a little older than the one that Peter's got.
Yeah, that's quite a ways
back.
That makes me feel old, because the one Peter's got actually came out after the one that I had, and I bought it new.
You are old.
Yeah, I didn't realize it. I didn't realize it until now. Thanks, Peter.
Hey, just kidding. You're younger than I am, so.
Peter, Tommy, what are you going to show us?
You know, we've had several requests about how to get on the air, relatively inexpensive, so I'm going to cover that topic this time.
That'll be a good one. And I'm going to talk about, I'm not actually going to talk about anything. I did an interview with Gordon West when I was out in California a couple of months ago, and Gordon was a real nice guy. It was a fun interview and a fun time out there. And we've also got a little video, a short one from Gary Pearce on the National Electronics Museum.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
So that's a nice place. I'd like to see it one day.
Yeah.
Well, I was doing a little looking on Google Plus today. And by the way, we have a page now on Google Plus for AmateurLogic. It's not much on it yet, because we really haven't figured out exactly how to use it.
But it is there.
Yeah, there'll be more coming to it. But somebody had posted a message on there about the Radio Shack blog, and I haven't been there in a while. You know, back I think it was around, I don't remember when it was now, maybe July. It's some few months back, Radio Shack had asked a question on there, what would hobbyists like to see the store carry again?
I remember.
And what their complaints were. And they got a lot of answers. And I got a reply on there that says, over the past 2 months, our DIY team has read through every single comment and suggestion and compiled a list of the top 10 improvements that you requested. And here's the list. Number 1, Arduino, the
Wow.
microcontroller chips.
Wow, they want them to start carrying and selling Arduino, huh?
Yeah. Number 2, more kits and project suggestions.
Wow.
Number 3, more introduction and instructional books.
Yeah.
Number 4, and I can't really get into this one myself, but a larger assortment of LEDs.
Can't ever have too many.
Well, you can't have too many, but that's about all you can get there right now.
Yeah.
Number 5, a wider variety of resistors. Number 6, tons more capacitors, and I'll say yes
Yeah.
to that one. Number 7, do-it-yourself audio and speaker equipment.
Okay.
That could be fun.
You used to carry that.
And the one you've been waiting on, number 8, guess what it is?
No idea.
Awesome. Ham radio gear.
Ah, of course.
Yep. Number 9, more competitive pricing, and I'll second that one. The prices
Yeah.
have really been outrageous
They
the
were-
last few times I've been there.
That's true.
And number 10, a stronger sales force. Yeah,
That tells me a lot about who their core user base, if you will.
Yeah. Guys like us and
Really-
guys like
really
these guys
is.
out there watching us.
Exactly, Tommy. Exactly.
Yeah, man, you could sum all that up and pretty much say everything except the stuff they've got in the store.
yeah.
They need, because pretty much what they've got now, I love Radio Shack. I've been going there since I was a little kid. But
You're
What
right.
they've got now is just consumer electronic, same stuff you can go to Best Buy and get.
So that's what people requested. That was the top 10 things that people
How about
requested.
that?
Now, they say they're pleased to let us know that they're actively working on every single one of these.
Wow.
That's great, man.
And they say they've already added a great selection of Velleman kits that's available today. And I've seen some of those kits
Yeah,
in there.
I have too.
The last few times
You
I've been in. And they've also adding a collection of Forrest Mims instructional books. You remember those?
Yeah,
great
they
little
used to sell
notebooks?
I've got
those.
a bunch of those things.
I do too. And they're getting new products in a wider assortment. It's going to take a while to get it in all the stores, but definitely keep an eye out for the additional products. And they're in the process of ramping up their in-store training so that their people can help you better. I got reservations about that one. I don't know that it'll actually happen, but maybe.
If they can try, that's a good thing anyway.
Yeah.
In addition, their merchandising team is working to lower the prices as much as possible without sacrificing the quality you expect from Radio Shack parts. Well, we'll leave that one alone.
Yeah.
And they said thanks for some awesome feedback. You know, I hope this comes through. It would be great to see Radio Shack really get back into the electronics business again.
It would, but if they do that, people are going to have to try to patronize
Yes.
them a little bit more so they can keep the stuff.
I just started to say, I just because of that, I'm going to make another trip back by
Yeah.
sometime in the near future.
Make two.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really, though, everybody go in and check out what they've got, try to support your stores, and let's see if we can get this moving here. It'd be fantastic, especially since we had a tragedy here Friday, didn't we, Tommy?
Oh, yeah, we did.
Yeah.
I remember now.
What was
Talking
it?
about a store closing,
Yeah.
our last one.
Oh, yeah.
Our last
I don't
good
know.
electronics store.
Absolutely. I don't know how that could have slipped my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
we're
we,
pretty much dry
other
now.
than Radio Shack, after Friday, we don't have anywhere else to buy any kind of resistors or capacitors or
anything.
anything.
So, Peter, do you have Radio Shacks down under?
We used to, I think we used to have Radio Shack 20, 30 years ago, but not now. I think they got bought out by a local firm called Dick Smith's, and they in turn got bought by, I think, Woolworths, which is our supermarket chain. And they went, but mainly did, I think, what Radio Shack did in the US, they went towards white goods, towards the more consumer electronics. So, there are other firms, though, that have sort of stepped in and now provide a more pure electronic stores here in Australia.
Well, guys, we got some good emails this time. I'm going to start off with one here. This is from my friend Adrian, and he does not have, he does have his call, 2E0SDR. Anyway, he says, I'd like to thank the Amateur Logic team for the great effort you've made in amateur radio. I'm addicted to your episodes. I always look forward to the next one. Nice bit on the SDR in episode 26. I look forward to seeing what George has installed for us SDR fans. And he says, check out my website at www.2e0sdr.com for some interesting SDR stuff. Keep it up, gents.
Yeah, I'm going to have to get back to SDRs here soon and get something else out on that.
Yeah, that's real popular. Very popular topic.
QST's got a review of the Flex 1500 QRP rig in this month's issue.
Oh, cool.
The Thanksgiving issue, or December issue, I'm sorry.
The 1500's a QRP rig?
Yep.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, the smallest they make.
Gentlemen, I thought I should just mention here that I've actually bought a SDR transceiver kit. So hopefully I'll build that over summer. And you get to see that on Amateur Logic.
Oh, great. Good deal, Peter. We look forward to hearing from you on that. I'm very interested. By the way, I've got an email for you. This one from Paul, WA3VJB. And he says, as we come into the low static fall-winter radio season, he'd like to recommend we do a segment on the AM community. There's so many elements down there that could be a part of our broadcast, lots of good sound. And, I think I'm going to get comments from our AM expert, Tommy.
Yeah.
Our Hall of Fame AMer.
Hall of Fame, I wouldn't go that
Hall of
far.
Fame.
Are you kidding?
Well, I've got an email here, and this one came from Richard in Malibu. He said, just a quick note to say thank you for the great job on Ham Nation. I enjoy Leo, Bob, and Gordo, and you make a great contribution to the hardware side of things. I'm learning a lot about being a ham, and I'm inspired to get my tech license. Well, go for it, Richard. If you haven't already, it's time you did.
Yeah, I've got an email here from Anthony, VK3LAJ. And he just asks, any chance of a few short shows about mobile radios? Well, Anthony, it's a bit outside my area of expertise. Personally, I use a boot lip mount on the back of my car, although they say that the best place to place the antenna is dead centre on top. But I don't particularly like drilling holes in my car. Maybe the guys in the US might be able to put something together for you.
Bootlick, yes, that's what kind of mount I have as well, Peter.
I think he said boot lip, which means
boot lip?
Yeah, that means something different here.
It's not a bootlet.
I'm sorry, in the vernacular of the American, Peter, we would call that a turtle hull mount.
Yeah.
All right. Is that like a Z-shaped assembly that just slides between the boot and the body of the car?
In America, a boot lip would be what you get when somebody kicks you. We call the boot the trunk here.
Yes.
I always thought trunk was something elephants had.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, guys, we had a lot of emails. I say a lot. We've had several emails and I think a Facebook post about how to get it on the air, relatively inexpensive. And anyway, I just thought I'd cover that. Let's take a look at my video. Lately, we've had several emails and questions on Facebook, Twitter, so forth about how to get on the air inexpensive. It's a broad question. Did you just get your technician license and you want to get on the air for the first time? Or did you upgrade to HF? Do you want to get on HF? So it wasn't specified in any of the emails. So I'm going to go at it as, you just got your license and you want to get on the air, period, for the first time. So most people start out on 2 meters or 440 or both, since you have privileges for those, and that's where most of your local traffic is going to be. So, You've got several choices for a first radio. A lot of people go with handy talkies, which is what I did. You can also get a mobile rig and use it either in your car or at home as a base, which is, I believe, what George and Jimmy as well did. You've got a lot of options. A lot of manufacturers now make some low-end radios that are fairly inexpensive. Elenco makes a 2-meter only radio, I believe, is less than $200. It's a mobile, 50 watts, and it's a pretty nice little radio, full featured, and you can do pretty much anything with it on 2 meters. My first radio, like I said, was a handy talkie. I got it for convenience. The downside of it is you don't have as much power output with it. So most of them is a max of 5 watts. Generally with the built-in batteries, you'll only get probably half of that, 2.5 watts, maybe 3 watts, something like that, depending on the radio. And hook it up to 12 volts external, like your car battery or a power supply. And you can get up to 5 out of most of them. Like I said, again, that varies with each radio. This is probably, a handy talkie is probably going to be your downright rock bottom cheapest way to get on the air, period. George bought one of those Ocean Chinese handy talkies. It's a really nice little radio, dual band, although I don't believe it's dual watch. You can't hear both bands at exactly the same time. But it is a good little radio. I think he's been pretty happy with it. $100 or just a little bit north of $100, and you get the radio, a good battery. I believe it came with a drop-in charger, software to program it with your computer, and the cable to hook up to the computer, I think. And it's like $100, $120, something like that. So many of those things around. When I was in Huntsville about a month or so back, I saw, maybe 2 months back. Anyway, just about everybody out there had one of those things hanging on their pocket. I kind of felt strange being the only one that didn't. Like I said, they're good radios, and that's probably going to be your rock bottom cost of getting on the air, unless you go find some type of a used radio, on eBay or at one of your local handfests, something like that. That's just going to give you portable operation. If you want to use that thing like I did, I used mine at home, and I also used it in my car. So I bought a mag mount antenna and put it on the vehicle, and I'd hook it up to the antenna jack on the top of the radio, and I used it mobile. I also bought myself a speaker mic that plugs into the side of the handy talkie, so I didn't have to pick the whole radio up to talk while I was driving. I could leave it down and hook up an external speaker and use the smaller microphone to talk with. That's pretty convenient. I used the radio like that, mobile, and I also used it at home for a good while before I actually bought my first mobile rig. At the time, funds were tighter than they are now, so I bought a radio and tried to make it last, do as much as I could with it. I was a little bit disappointed because I couldn't hit a lot of the repeaters in some of the nearby towns. If you want to go the mobile route, you could do like George and Jimmy did. They bought, I believe they bought a 2-meter Kenwood 241 at the time, and put quick connects on the power cables so they could plug it into the car, and bought power supplies, 20 amp supplies, I think. Put quick connects on that. So anyway, it's easy to take the radio and unplug it from home and unscrew the antenna, and then just carry it out and plug it into the car, and you're on the air. Really easy. It's a more robust solution. If you talk on that any length of time, you can put 50 watts out on that and talk on it a good while and not have to worry about a heat problem. Whereas these handy talkies, if you're getting 5 watts out of these and you talk on any length of the time, it's going to get really hot. The little heat sink on the back, which is generally the belt clip, you're very, very hot to the touch. So what are we going to need? We're going to need a radio, goes without saying, an antenna, a power supply, possibly some coax, and some type of a microphone, possibly, although handy talkies have one built in, and your mobile rig is going to generally come with the microphone unless you buy a used one that may not have it. Again, the handy talkie, one price, and you've got everything you can get on the air. Rock bottom price. Not sure it's you're going to make the most contacts with it, but you can have a lot of fun with it like I did for my first one. And actually, I still enjoy mine. Let's take a look at some lower end gear and some prices, and let's get a bottom line number. I checked on the handy talkie, found the Ocean, $119.99. That's pretty much everything you're going to need to be on the air. You can get the optional speaker mic, which you probably want, for $17 more. Then there's a lot of accessories for that radio that are very cheap as well. That's a dual bander. For mobile, I found a Kenwood 281 when I was looking around. Normally $200 for $149. The antenna and a mount for your car going to give you about $211. If you decide you want to use that at home, you're going to need a power supply, base antenna, some coax, and some antenna mast, and 206.85 is what I came up with. I found new prices for this stuff. If you shop around, check your Hamfests and things like that. Like we had mentioned, you could probably get these a little cheaper, and you may find things a little bit higher. I shopped around for several places and found these, and these aren't by any means all you can get. There's a lot of options. Well, as you can see, handy talkie is probably the rock bottom cost-wise to get on the air. Maybe not I was going to say maybe not the best, but for me it actually was the best for what I wanted out of it. You'll outgrow the capabilities of it soon, though, and want to end up getting a full-powered rig. You go the mobile rig route, cost isn't that much more, but you're limited to use it in the car. And if you want to step up in cost again, you're going to need a base antenna, coax. Depending on how long of a run you need, that can add a fair amount of cost on to it, depending on what quality coax you get. And you're going to need a power supply, which can be excess of another $100, excess of another $100 or so. Anyway, I hope you found it useful. Go pick out your radio, get what's in your price range, and hopefully we'll hear you on the air.
That ought to be useful for a lot of folks, Tommy. I didn't realize that you could buy a Kenwood 2-meter rig that cheap.
Yeah, it's on sale right now. Man, that is dirt cheap.
Yeah. I'm all about cheap, used, inexpensive.
Yeah, well, this was new, $149 for a Kenwood 281.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So anyway, you can actually get on the air on a budget these days if you want to. Look around.
Yeah.
A lot of options.
It's harder to get on the air any more inexpensively than in CW mode. Yeah. And that reminds me, we got an email from our friend Cliff, KU4GW, and Cliff started a CW Operators Facebook group. And it's cool. I've been over there and looked at it. It's got all kind of CW things, events coming up and things like that, and you should check it out too. Here's the link, www.facebook.com/CW/operators. Go check it out.
Jim, what are you going to show us?
As a matter of fact, what am I going to be showing you this time? Oh yeah, that's right, something else I've been working on, which is some micro-controlled stepper motors. Oh hey, you caught me with my work clothes on. It's that time of year again. The leaves are in the pool, it's fall, and that means it's antenna season, or whatever kind of outdoor project you might need to do for your ham installation. For me, I've been thinking about a remote antenna tuner, specifically one like this one. Boy, isn't that a nice job? It's done with stepper motors and microcontrollers. And that's what this segment is really about. Stepper motor basics, really. Microcontrollers, they're just an adjunct. They drive the stepper motors. So, let's take a look at what I've been playing with. Yeah, isn't this a beautiful example? Boy, I tell you, precision is what makes stepper motors ideal, because you can repeat exactly where you're going to turn something, how you're going to turn it, etc., because they're controlled with microcontrollers. So anything you need to turn a knob or a shaft on, or some remote pod, or even if you need to move equipment to a certain position programmatically, you can place it on top of a slider like this one, and you can move it up and down, left and right, or whatever. Think step IR antennas as an example. Don't know for certain that their antennas use this technology to tune automatically and move the antennas automatically, but it's certainly possible. There are a lot of microcontrollers that you can choose from. The Arduino is a popular one. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly or not. I'm not Italian, but Arduino. But Parallax is another one. You've probably heard of the Basic Stamp. I use the Basic Stamp. In fact, here is the Basic Stamp I'll be using. This is an older one that I bought quite a while back. Probably spent, I think it was 39 bucks on it, maybe 49. George may have to straighten me out on that. But you can use microcontrollers for all kinds of stuff. Just look at some of the amateur projects they're used in. Repeater controllers, they can sense what DTMF tones are being pushed and control your repeater. You can program them as frequency counters, or antenna tools like the MFJ259 antenna analyzer. Here's an example from AMQRP. Or you can use them to build your own QRP or QRO rig. They are really fantastic things when it comes to the amateur community. So, where can you get your stepper motor? Well, if you don't want to spend a lot of money, like me, you can get them right here, just like I did, from used printers or scanners or even some old amateur radio gear maybe. But I called up all my friends and said, hey, do you have any old printers or flatbed scanners lying around that you're not using? You can even get some out of old copy machines. Once you get one, you can, if you're lucky, look up the docs, or the documentation, I should say, on the web. If you're not lucky, you may just have to figure out how the stepper is wired and on your own. That's easier to do than you might think. Okay, so we've got us a used, inexpensive stepper motor, but we can't find docs to it or documentation on the internet, so we've got to figure this thing out all by ourselves. How are we going to do that? Well, it helps a lot if you already know how a stepper motor is wired on the inside. So let's look at that first. I'm nobody's artist, but let's say here's our motor, here's the spindle, and inside we've got 4 coils of wire, of course, and those 2 coils are joined together by a common wire, forming, in fact, 2 sets of coils. And these 2 sets of coils have, of course, 6 wires coming off of them, a common. And polarity is not really important, but I guess you could think of it as a plus and a minus. That may be a wrong-headed way of thinking on it, but we're going to mark them that way for the time being, just for purposes of discussion. Now, if we can figure out this using a volt-ohm meter, we'll know how to wire our stepper motor. And so we can figure it out with a volt-ohm meter because it's just a matter of resistance. If we take a volt-ohm meter and put it on our positive and a common, we're going to see X amount of resistance. We should see that same amount of resistance between this set of wires. And if we measured all the way across from this wire to this wire, we would see X plus X amount of resistance. Now, if we measure resistance between this wire and this wire over here, we should see nothing. Similarly, any wire over here measured against a wire in this pair of coils, we'll see no resistance. All right, so if we take a voltometer, we can identify these two coils, and we can tell which wire is common and which is one end of our pair of coils and which is the other end of our pair of coils. There's really no such thing as positive and negative. Okay, so that's how we're going to figure out how to wire it. Like here we go, we're white to red, and you see we have 6.7 ohms or thereabouts. And let's see, let's go white to blue this time. Oh, okay, we're out in mega ohm territory, so nothing there. Where were we? White to red. Let's go white to brown. And bada bing, bada boom, another good one. 6.8, 6.9. So what, were we on white to red? 6 point, come on, yeah, okay. So we see here white is common between brown and red. That means if we test brown to red directly, we should get a higher reading, and boom, yep, about twice 6.7 or 13.4. And that means we've figured out that these three wires are two coils and a common wire, the common wire between these two coils. So that means that these other three wires should behave in exactly the same way. Two of these are coils, and I'm betting these two are the coils, and the brown one is the common one. You know, that's just a guess because I don't actually remember, but just going by brown, it looks, by black, usually is that kind of color coding. So yeah, I think I was a good guesser because that's 6.7 ohms, brown to yellow, 6.7, yep, and yellow to blue, we should see, yeah, 13.4. So we now know how to wire our unipole stepper motor. Let's do it. Here's our circuit. As you can see over on the left, we have 4 pins coming in from our microcontroller. That's going to drive our Darlington array in a chip. And that in turn will pulse our 4 coil wires and allow the spindle to turn. You'll see our common over here on the right, which will be connected to 12 volts to power both pair of coils, also to our Darlington array. And then our ground will complete the circuit. What we're going to do now is we're going to wire this puppy up, hopefully, and we're going to watch it run. This back here is our 6-volt power source for the basic stamp. This our 12-volt power source for the stepper motor. Let's go ahead and put that in. Our power to our stepper motor and to the Darlington transistor, and this to our basic stamp, which already has our code in it. And look at there. Hook him up and run the code in here. I think if I remember the code right, I had him go a full step forward, then a full step back, and then same thing maybe at a higher speed. So there you are, some pretty cool stuff, those stepper motors and microcontrollers. They can be used in a lot of things, you know, for amateur use, as you saw. But I don't know if I'm going to have time to get my remote antenna tuner built or not. Boy, there's a lot of leaves in this pool. Anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
We had a posting on Facebook from Adam. He said, I'm still studying for my technician's license, but couldn't resist picking up one of these on eBay for $50. It's a Baofeng UV3R Mark II dual display FM micro transceiver radio. And yes, I've seen these cheap Chinese rigs around, and I believe some of them are quite good. Just a word of warning, though, that here in Australia, some of those radios can transmit out of band, and they may not necessarily be approved for Australian use. So if you're buying any Chinese radios here in Australia, I'd recommend that you check with the ACMA before doing so.
Okay, thanks.
Good advice.
Yeah. Well, I've got an email here from John WA8YXM, and he says, since I have a TS2000, the mod to use WinRad, very interesting. Why do I have a TS2000? Well, when I got to Dayton in 2006, I looked at the really good radios there, and the 2000 was less expensive and it appeared to be slightly smaller. In fact, just the size of the spot in the motorhome I was planning to bolt it into. It fits perfectly. And he says, Tommy's use of handheld with a 35-watt Mirage amp. When I'm driving this house around, on my left side sits a Yaesu FT51R I got back in 1995. And next to it is a 35-watt Mirage dual-band brick.
Hey. I remember those 51s.
Yeah.
Good rigs.
And he went on to say a lot more here that we don't have time to cover right now, because we do have a double jam-packed show, as we said.
Double jam-packed.
All right, folks, it's time for my project. I'm doing a bit of smoke and solder for a bit of a change. I decided, I saw a circuit on the internet for a One Valve Regen Receiver, and also saw a YouTube video which demonstrated one that had been built. And I was so impressed I decided to go and build one myself. So in case you don't know what a valve is, it's kind of like a light-emitting integrated circuit. Here you go. Hello everyone. This episode we're going to have a brief look at a project I've just built. It's a One Valve Regenerative Receiver. I first came across this receiver when viewing a YouTube video of one that was built by Peter, VK3YE. Now, once upon a time there was a rather cool kit you could buy called the Radio Ace. It was a One Valve Regenerative Receiver built around a 12AU7, a 12-volt 9-pin double triode. The Radio Ace kit is no longer produced, but is still available in some stores. It looks to be a pretty easy kit to build, but best of all is the attractive wood case on which the valve is mounted. The valve is also known as the ECC82. According to the National Valve Museum website, it's a double triode with separate cathodes and an amplification factor of 17. But Peter's radio was based on an improved circuit that can be found at the following website. The author of the website wasn't happy with the performance of the circuit, so he came up with a number of improvements. I saw Peter's video of his radio on YouTube and was so impressed I decided to build one myself. The second circuit on the web page is the modified circuit, and this is the one you should build. All the parts can be obtained from your local electronics store, and the valve and 9-pin miniature valve base can be obtained off eBay. Now here's some construction notes. To build the coil, I wound some thin cardboard around a ferrite rod and then glued and duct taped it so that it maintained its shape. I then got some thin copper wire and wound around 90 turns on it, taking care to duct tape the wire at each end so that the coil kept its shape. Every 10 turns or so, I would twist the wire up to make a tap and then continue winding. Later I scraped off the coating off the taps and put some solder on them. I also scraped and soldered the ends of the coil so that it could be connected into the circuit. The regeneration tap, which goes to pin 8 of the valve, comes off the coil. I experimented around a bit and found that the regeneration worked about halfway along the coil, but feel free to experiment and see what works best for you. That's half the fun of a project like this. As you can see from the circuit diagram, one end of the coil goes to ground and the other to the junction of the antenna, 320 puff variable capacitor, 2.2 mega ohm resistor, 330 puff capacitor and antenna. Although I put the 12 puff and 33 puff capacitors on the board, ultimately I found that the radio worked best without any antenna connected at all, so you could probably build the circuit without them. And here is the finished result. We have the valve on top here so that it looks attractive and can provide additional lighting and heating in the depths of winter. The valve provides the regeneration, that is to say, positive feedback back to the circuit. The valve is also used to provide some audio amplification later in the circuit. At the back here, I've pulled out the coil I wound so that you can see how I put it together. The components are mounted on a bit of breadboard, but we won't look at that because there could be young children watching and the sight of my soldering and tangle of wires could scar them for life. On the left here we have an additional switch I put in, which connects the ground to various taps on the coil, depending on the switch setting. This means I can electrically shorten the number of turns on the coil, which means I can cover different parts of the broadcast band. I have an on and off switch here, and in the middle is the regeneration control, which varies the amount of positive feedback the valve puts back into the circuit. Finally, on the right, I have the variable capacitor to tune the stations in with. So how does it work? For that, I'll refer you to a technical description provided by Charles Kitchen, N1TEV, in an article titled High Performance Regenerative Receiver Design that is available at the ARRL website. He gives a quite detailed description of a regenerative circuit. Basically, the valve introduces a negative resistance into a circuit such that its net positive resistance is reduced. Since the circuit's selectivity, or Q, is equal to its reactance divided by its overall resistance, selectivity is greatly improved when positive feedback is applied. The positive feedback also greatly improves the receiver's sensitivity. Okay, it's time to road test the radio. I've hooked it up to my computer speakers to give a bit of extra amplification. Now, will it blow up? Will there be smoke? There's only one way to find out. Well, no smoke, that's a good sign. And if we wait a few seconds and you look carefully at the valve here, you'll actually start to see it glow, which is rather nice. And we start turning up the regeneration control now. Start tuning around a little bit. Hopefully. There we go. We found some stations. So starting at the bottom here of the broadcast band, Radio National, 50 kilowatt station. As you can see, hand capacitance does affect the radio. It really should be mounted in a metal box. Now that's 3AW, which I think is a 5 kilowatt station, and it's a good station to illustrate something. Now if I turn the regeneration control up too high, this is what happens. The circuit starts to oscillate and it's quite unpleasant. So we've got to back the regeneration control down to just below oscillation. Nonetheless, the circuit does provide good selectivity and sensitivity. You won't tune right up to the very top of the broadcast band, but I can electrically shorten the coil using this switch here, and that will get me a little bit higher. There's just one extra station I can pick up. This is right at the very top of the broadcast band. And that is a local Chinese station, literally within 2 kilometres of where I live. Low power though, and unfortunately its audio quality isn't so good. It's not the radio, it's actually the audio quality of the transmitter. Now I've added an extra switch setting here, which will take me up to even higher frequencies, to the shortwave bands, but I've yet to receive anything that high. Maybe if I had an external antenna, then I might pick up something. But generally speaking, for medium wave reception, this works very, very well, in fact better without an external antenna. So there you have it, a simple, easy to build vintage radio circuit which relies on the amplification of just a single valve, but gives surprisingly good performance. It's quite easy to build, and it's extremely satisfying to know that you built it yourself.
Peter, I'm glad to see you do that. I haven't played with any of the low voltage tube stuff yet myself. You know, it's really amazing that you can put 12 volts on a plate and get something out.
Yeah.
That was a great segment.
Yeah. Oh, look, it was a lot of fun to build. I'd never done anything with valves before, and it worked first time, so I was really, really happy.
Cool. It was interesting. Well, guys, I got another email here. This one's from our friend Joe, MM6JBN. It says, "Hi, Amateur Logic team. Been watching your shows from the start and wondering if there'll be any other shows, as a video have been shown at our club's meetings in the past. All of our members really enjoyed watching them and are asking are there going to be any more screened. Thank you for all your good work. Keep it up. Your friends from Scotland at the W0SARS. Actually, it's funny you say that right now, because there'll be one out at the end of this coming week.
Yeah.
Still putting them out after all this time.
We're putting them out right this minute, man. So, but anyway, we did have some space in between, and we're trying to get back more on a regular schedule. So
yeah.
look for them close to 30-day intervals, as close as we're able to work them out.
Yeah. In fact, if you look over this last year, we've just about done one every month, and we'll probably have another one, I would imagine, before December.
It's our hope to, anyway.
Yeah, working on it for sure.
Well, guys, I've got a post here from our friend Bill, and he's talking about, I haven't actually seen this before, but A25 Comlight, if you've ever heard of that. It's a pretty cool little project, and we'll post that link. But Bill says he's not affiliated with this project, but he saw the video and thought it was a quick and easy way to set up emergency comms. It's a telescoping light pole and amateur antenna deal, and it goes up, and it's got 4 lights pointing in all directions. It casts light for about 50 feet all around, and you've got your comms ready to go all at the same time. You just hook it on the back of your car and go with it. Cool.
Well, we could have used that at field day, couldn't we?
Yes, we could have.
Well, I've got an interview here that I did with our friend Gordo, who's probably one of the most famous hounds in the U.S. He writes a lot of books and a lot of magazine articles. And we met recently out in Petaluma, California.
Well, look who I ran into here at the Twitch Studios.
And me too. Look who I ran into. Hi, George.
Hi, Gordo. It's really nice to meet you in person. I have a great time with you and Bob every week on Ham Nation.
Well, thanks. And we're here at the studios. George and I and Bob are getting ready for upcoming podcasts, and we hope that all of you will continue to keep watching, because we've got a heck of a great format coming to town soon.
We sure do. And Gordo and I slipped off around the corner here where we could find a little peace and quiet. I wanted to ask him a few questions so we could get to know Gordon a little better than maybe we do through the show. What age did you get into ham radio?
I first got tuned into radio, you might say, when I was about 8 or 10 years old. I was raised aboard a boat with my parents, and the only tuning in of the outside world was an AM radio. And I was fascinated that I would get skywaves at night on AM. And I found that if I went into the tuning capacitor and tuned it just a little bit, I could begin to get the bottom of the 160 meter band. Wow. And I was fascinated that these are real live folks carrying on conversation. So I'd have to say my radio went way back to just the pre-teens.
Oh, that's great. So you've been tinkering with it for quite some time.
Oh yeah, was very involved in marine electronics. Got my ham radio license in high school as a novice, and then technician when I started off to college, and then general class, and worked for a period for Henry Radio when I was going to college, doing repairs of ham radio equipment.
Well, that's a much coveted piece of equipment, those Henry amplifiers.
Oh, the Henry amps were, boy, as you indicated, you had to be real careful to get that big screwdriver out and safety glasses, discharge those big caps on the inside.
What's your favorite mode of operation, or do you have one?
Well, I love the mode that is fairly unique, and that is microwave work, 10 gigahertz, and this is the 10 gigahertz contest. But single sideband on HF is always pleasurable, tropospheric ducting on VHF and UHF, digital modes. I really like to try them all, and I tell our students, try and do every single mode you can in 1 year or 2 years, just to enjoy all there is with ham radio.
What bands do you frequent?
Well, bright and early in the morning, I start off on 40 meters with a California time 830 net on 7250 lower sideband. And then mid-morning, I go up to the maritime mobile frequency 14300, listen to that. Then in the afternoon, I'm always listening for some tropo ducting up from the Southern California area to the Bay Area, and talk 2 meter single sideband over about 300 or 400 miles, and that's fascinating. That doesn't, George, kick in till about 2 or 3 when we get that strong inversion layer. And then later on in the afternoon, I go back to the maritime mobile bands, and then late in the afternoon, I drop back down to 40 and 75 and talk to some of the sailors down in Baja, California.
Well, we all know you well from Gordon West Radio School and the magazine articles that you've published in the past. And what else have you done? Or have you always been a radio guy?
No, I've always been involved in radio. For a period, worked for sideband engineers back in the CB radio days, and I was going around to different CB shops throughout the country, helping support the technical side of the SBE line. But I kept looking at that SBE 33 and 34 that they sort of put on hold when the CB days got going, and I said, gee, I'd sure like to have one of those rigs going as well.
That's great. What's your favorite events to work?
Run that one by my favorite.
Yeah, what are your favorite amateur radio related events?
Oh, events. Oh, yeah. I'd have to say ham fests. Because I enjoy meeting hams and listening to some of the exciting modes that they're into. And I'm always learning, and then I try and convey that information to the listening audience when I'm doing my different audio casts for training. But ham shows are always a favorite, and when we do our weekend free classes, I don't charge for teaching the classes, and we do them about every 3 months. We run a series of them, and while these are weekend classes, they're not cram classes. The students have to study ahead of time, and before they can hit that class on Saturday morning, we want to see that they've completed their pre-study, and that gets them going through the book ahead of time.
Well, that's great stuff. Well, it was sure nice to meet you, and maybe we gave our viewers a little more insight into just who this Gordon West is.
Well, thanks, George. And I think the best part is experts like yourself that are able to give back to ham radio some of the skills. And that's my enjoyment, is being around so many experts that you and I meet and finding out what their specialty is. And you being the smoke and solder guy, I was just fascinated to see all your techniques and all the tools necessary to complete these projects. So, like you, we just enjoy being out there and among the experts. Thank you, George, for having me on board. Hi to your listeners out there and viewers. And again, this is the man that's making things happen today at Ham Nation here in Petaluma at the Leo Laporte Studios.
We'll see you next Tuesday night.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I haven't got to meet Gordo yet, but he seems like a really nice guy, and no kidding, he really is an amateur radio icon. He's done so much to help people get on the air, probably more than any other one person that I can
You're
think
right.
of.
He's the quintessential ham.
Yeah,
Tell you.
absolutely.
And he's just a nice guy, too.
Yeah, I hope to meet him one of these days, maybe.
My final email is from Craig, VK3VCM. And he says, can you possibly maybe look at doing a segment on your show for amateurs like me who are at the moment trapped in buildings where huge dipoles and Yagi antennas are out of the question, and maybe see if your AmateurLogic colleagues from the States may have any suggestions? Yeah, well, I've actually got a suggestion for people that are in a difficult position like that. One option is that there are actually some radios, that is two-way radios, set up on the internet that you can sign up for and actually remotely control. So you could actually remotely control a HF rig which is hooked up to a big antenna on the other side of the world. So you don't even need to build an antenna to do it, technically speaking. Obviously, loop antennas are another option, but what about it, guys? What suggestions would you have? And could we do a segment maybe?
Possibly, yeah. There's always that, I can't remember if he said he was in an apartment or not, but if he's in any kind of house with an attic, you can do the old dipole in the attic routine. Or you remember what we used to do when we were FMDXing. Tell them what we used to do when we couldn't put an antenna up outdoors. No, not that. Just just hanging one from the ceiling. I mean.
Yeah, hang one from the ceiling inside.
Yeah, we don't want to incriminate ourselves.
No.
I don't think the statute of limitations has run out on that yet.
Well, you could always use a really, really, really big linear amplifier, but you might fry yourself in the process.
As long as you didn't need to hear.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Well, I've got an email here from Tim, WK4U, and he said he just wanted to say a quick thank you for all the great videos that we've created. And he set up his RSS reader to catch the latest episodes every time they're published. He said he just downloaded the latest clips and looked forward to watching it shortly. And to be honest, he really enjoys the series that we did in Starkville with MFJ. You remember MFJ, High Gain, and Ameritron.
That was a very popular episode.
And he'd like the 20-minute segment on how to install a PL259 and then check it out with the MFJ 259B antenna analyzer. Great stuff. Well, thanks, Tim. We like sharing things when we find them like that, and what a great time I had in Starkville. Wayne and I did. Y'all two didn't get to go, but
yep.
Man, next time they have one of those parties, open house like that, you really got to check it out.
Yeah, I was in Missouri at the time.
Yeah.
I would love to go.
I did get to make that trip, but I have met Martin, and I highly recommend. He's at every ham fest everywhere in the United States. If you go, walk up to him and introduce yourself to him. He's very approachable, and he'd love to talk to you.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So we've got one final video tonight, and this came from Gary Pearce, who is I think he calls himself temporary stand-in last-ditch host for wherever Bob can't make it to Ham Nation. Gary's KN4AQ, and he does the amateur radio video news videos that you can find out about online. And he recently took a tour of the National Electronics Museum.
So Cliff Broughton, W4FT, and I were up in Baltimore at the Digital Communications Conference for Tapper, and we went out to lunch, and we passed by this building that had all of these radar antennas. And then we noticed it also had some ham radio antennas. So we decided to check it out. Turns out it was the National Electronics Museum. Now, we had never heard of it, so on Monday, after the conference was over, before we headed back to North Carolina, we decided to stop by and see what it was all about. We figured from all the antennas that ham radio would play some part in this museum. Turns out it was a pretty big part.
Welcome to the National Electronics Museum. I'm Les Jamison. My call sign is WR3X.
Our tour began with the good old Jacob's Ladder. Then Cliff got a lesson in how electricity is generated.
You make the exercise?
And we moved on to radio, which is a big part of what the museum has to offer. We heard a few words from Marconi.
On December the 12th, 1901, when I placed the single earphone to my ear and started listening, the chief question was whether wireless waves would be stopped by the curvature of the Earth. The first and final answer to that question came at 12:30, when I heard
We ordered a pizza over the telegraph.
You should be sending American Morse. I don't know American Morse. I'm going to send international. That would be a large pepperoni and cheese, please.
Well, the pizza never came, which may say something about my sending ability. So we looked at some old military equipment. I was particularly intrigued by this cutaway view of a mobile installation. I'm a big fan of operating mobile, and I'm glad things have gotten a little bit smaller. I'm pretty sure this truck doesn't get very good gas mileage. I was also impressed by this really nice exhibit of an early ham radio Spark station. I've seen Spark equipment before, but I've never seen it assembled in what I'll assume is a really authentic looking station. That's amazing. A receiver, a transmitter with no tubes, no dials, no readouts, no displays. I only wish it could actually operate so I could see it and, even more importantly, hear it to see what ham radio sounded like in those days. I know Spark was a really broad signal, and there wasn't really any tuning. I mean, everybody was kind of mixed together on the same wavelength. They didn't even call it frequency. And I've heard recordings of Spark, but I've never heard what it would sound like actually to be operating on the air, and I'd love to be able to hear that. I guess we'll never really have that opportunity. The museum has an extensive modern ham radio station as well. It wasn't operational at the time of our visit. It seems to be a manpower issue. And that seems to be a problem with a lot of museum stations. There are some good ones that are still operating, but there are quite a few that have fallen by the wayside. Maybe the most famous is the station at the Smithsonian Institution's Museum of American History, which went off the air a couple of years ago. If you've got an operating museum station in your area, maybe you want to think about supporting it a little bit more. The museum isn't huge, but you can easily spend several hours or more looking through all the exhibits. There's a lot of radar and satellite stuff in addition to the communications equipment. It's well worth your $3 admission. It's in the same building as Northrop Grumman, so I guess you can see where a lot of the support comes from. It's not too far from the Baltimore airport, so if you're going to be in the Baltimore area, you might want to plan on stopping by the National Electronics Museum.
You know, it's a lot of fun working with Gary when Bob can't be around. And, you know, one week he and I had the whole show to ourselves.
I remember. I saw that. Gary seems like a really nice guy. I've never met him personally, but have been an admirer of his work. And he certainly does a good job on Ham Nation.
He does.
That museum looked pretty interesting, too. I wouldn't mind checking that out.
I would like to
I would love to go.
Myself.
Yeah.
My in-laws live up near Baltimore, so next time I'm up there, I'll have to check that out. Be a good place to hang out.
Yeah.
No doubt.
We had a great time today, and I hope you enjoyed the show. I guess maybe this is our Thanksgiving episode, Tommy. Will this be out before then?
Yeah, it'll be out by Thanksgiving.
That's good.
Should finish it up this week.
So, happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving, and be sure to check out 10 meters while the band's open.
Peter, you have Thanksgiving down under?
No, that's an an American celebration, but I appreciate the sentiments of it, though.
All right, that's it for number 34. Y'all join us again next time. 7-3.
7-3.
See you next time.
See you later.